Good morning, Saints. Thank you for joining me. I would love today to talk under the title or the subject, the highest measure of test that man faces on earth. Remember, the Bible says in the book of Romans that you have not been tested by a test beyond a measure of your strength, which tells us that even our strength is measured. Even the burdens that we face on earth is also measured. Everything on the realm of earth is measured. Everything. Let's go to the book of Genesis 22 rather. And we read from Genesis 22 verse 9 downwards. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood, and Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes," Abraham replied, "here I am." "Don't lay a hand on the boy." And the angel said, "Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." I'll open by saying God does not go around searching for people who are righteous, who qualifies to do certain work in his kingdom and call them in. God goes around searching for people who he himself called and chosen before the foundation of the earth or the foundation of the world, and bring them home and qualifies them to do or undergo certain assignment. Remember what he told Jeremiah. He said, "Before you were born, I called you. Before you were conceived in your mother's womb, I selected you to be a prophet to the nations." So when God finds you, he finds you already having called you and chosen you before you even thought about it. Now, when God finds us, he finds us in different places. Some of us, he finds us taking care of the donkeys like Saul, son of Kish. Some of us, he finds us taking care of our father's sheep like David from Bethlehem. Some of us, he finds us in agricultural projects like Elisha. Some of us, he finds us hating the church, persecuting the church, talking bad about the church and the pastors, and doing all sort of evil things. But when he finds us like Paul, who later wrote almost 80% of the New Testament, when God finds you, it's not because you are right. He finds you because it is time for you to fulfill what he called you before the foundation of the earth. When he finds us, then he takes us into the journey of transformation so that we can qualify to undergo the assignments that he called and chose us for. Most of us, when he finds us, there are things in our systems, there are things in our thinking systems, there are things in our lives that he has to get rid of. And it is this journey of transformation whereby he removes the sulfurs, he removes the contaminations, he removes things that has to that we're going to ruin our walk with him. and limit us from doing that which God wants us to do. The secret or the mystery here is some he transforms them, or he enters them into the process of transformation before he seats them on their throne. Whereas some, he sits us on the throne and later brings us into the point where he begins to qualify us. And it's so amazing. Some are processed, and then when they qualify, he sits them on the throne. Whereas some of us, he calls them and allows us to sit on that throne, to sit on that ministry, to sit on that assignment, but later takes you off from the throne and begins to work you out and begins to transform you, to qualify you, whereas he already set you on the throne. Take for instance with David. His situations were the situations to qualify him to sit on the throne as a king of Israel and Judah. He was hated by his brothers. They sent him to take care of the sheep in the jungle. He lived his life in the wilderness. And later, after he killed Goliath, which was the thing that made him famous and honorable in all of Israel, and then he was called to come and work in the house of Saul the king, because he had a gift of playing a harp. But later Saul realized that the young boy is now gaining fame more than him because of what happened in the bush when he fought against the Philistines. He began to hate him because he thought this boy is taking fame out of me. People are now taking off their eyes from me and they're looking at this boy because of what happened. He started to hate him and planned to eliminate him, to kill him. David ran away. Some book says for over 6 months he slept in caves. He lived 6 months of his life in the jungle, running away from point A to point B, from point B to point C. Other manuscript says David never slept in one cave twice, because when he was in this cave, Saul already found out. When he was in this city, they told Saul that your enemy is here. So he spent 6 months running away for his life. And that was his qualifications to enter into his throne. When he wrote Psalm 23, it was because of what he was going through. When he said, the Lord is my shepherd. When he wrote Psalm 124, the Lord is my light and my salvation, it was because of what he was going through. It was the process of his qualification. After all this, God qualified him and he sat on the throne and he enjoyed all the power of the throne and the fame of being a king. The same applies to Joseph. God allowed him to go through hatred, accusations, jail time without being guilty, because he was going up to his throne. He faced the process of transformation before he ascended the throne. But that's not all. Some of us, he allows us to go on top of the throne and then later takes us off and begins to work on us. What made the death of Jesus so embarrassing, so shameful, so foolish, so dirty and disgusting is not necessarily because of what he was going through during his sufferings, but it was augmented and amplified by who he was 3 years and a half. Because like nobody else, he healed the sick, performed all kinds of miracles, walked on water, disappeared out of crowd. He raised the dead, he opened the eyes, and the lame walked. At his command, bones connected and flesh came on Lazarus and came out of the tomb. He was so brave that he called the Pharisees hypocrites and the sons and the children of snakes. No one could stop this man because he entered the church, the temple of God, and drove people out of the house of God and said, "This is the house of my Father, it's the house of worship, and you have made it the house of thieves." Until you face the situation where you lose that which you had, you have not yet tested with a greatest test. The greatest measure of a man on earth is when you foolishly lose that which you received miraculously. Jesus left his throne in heaven, became a man, but God empowered him. The Bible says, "The Spirit of the Lord, the glory of God is upon me to preach the gospel, to lay hands on the sick, to free the bounds and do the miracles." But later we find Jesus on the cross, hanging there, crying, "Oh God, why have you forsaken me?" When he stood before the tomb of Lazarus, he said, "Lord, I know that when I call unto you, you hear me." But now he's facing his own tomb and he is crying, "Why have you rejected me? Why have you let me fall in the hands of sinners?" Because he was facing the time of the test where he loses foolishly what he received miraculously. I want to tell you that until you face that point where you lose foolishly what you miraculously received, you have not yet been tested with the greatest measure of a test. Abraham is commanded by the same God to go give away his son Isaac, his only son. This is the son who came into his life at the age of 100 years old, and his wife is 90 years old. Obviously, people celebrated with Abraham. They knew that this man received favor. They knew that this man received such mercy and grace before God. For him to have a son at this age is a miracle. It's miraculous. And now God says, "Go and give him away. Go and burn him unto me as a sacrifice." And Abraham took his son, ascended the mountain, prepared the fire. And the Bible says, as he was about to kill him, the voice came from heaven. The angel said, "Do not harm your son. Now I know that you truly love God. You truly fear God." The word fear there is the word that means reference with God. You can obey God because you love him. Abraham was tested by giving away, by losing foolishly that which he received miraculously. Because obviously when he goes down back home, they were going to know that you killed him. You went up the mountain with him and you told the servants to stay from away from you, and now you came back without him. You killed him. You killed your son. How can you do that? But he was being tested. He was being tested by losing foolishly that which he received miraculously. Until you lose, you come to a point where you lose everything that you received, you have not yet been tested. I want to tell you that God will test you by losing everything that you have, that you miraculously gained. Oh man, you've been a match from heaven. Your wedding was a miracle. Your children are so wise, are so intelligent, they are beautiful. We fret on you because we have jealous on you because everything is good. Your church, your praise and worship team, when they sing, everything is well. Kereke ngoya khongela, kereke ngoya yindla lesu. You have all these sort of things that praise and worship God and just give God the glory. Your pastor this, your money that, and you come to a point where you have to lose that because you are being tested. Can you trust God even when you are told to give away your Isaac, the one that you received miraculously? Can you stand and say, God, I'll give you this, and still believe that you'll bring them back? I'll close by a quote. Sometimes the person who judges you is more judged by his own judgment than the person he judges. Let's learn to trust God even by our last breath, because he is faithful that at the end, when there's 1 second left that you lay your life on your son's heart, a voice can come and say, now I know that you love me. Thank you.